I'm no expert, but as far as I'm aware, fights with deadly weapons tend to end fairly quickly. I mean, if you stab something with a sword or shoot it with a gun, it usually goes down straight away, regardless of whether the subject being stabbed or shot can be identified as a boss or not. Our boss here at the office is no less susceptible to a swift strike with an axe than the average person, for example, and don't ask me how I know that. Video games don't adhere to this rule, however, with most bosses able to take Rasputinian levels of damage before finally kicking the bucket, and we're okay with this. An epic boss fight is one of those unique joys of gaming, after all. What if the developers got a little bit carried away, though? Well, that's the subject of today's video, as we're taking a look at some of the longest boss fights in gaming history and investigating just what it is that makes each one such an enduring ordeal. Of course, please remember that even the most drawn-out bosses can be beaten quickly by pro-level, super-prepared players, but for the average gamer, these are some marathon battles. Also, MMO bosses are being omitted because that's another video altogether. Let's get started, shall we? I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are the 10 longest boss battles that took forever to finish. Number 10. Ethereal Queen, Star Ocean: The Last Hope. Star Ocean: The Last Hope was originally released on the Xbox 360 in 2009. It follows the adventures of bombastically named spacefarer Edge Maverick and his motley crew of space friends as they embark on a galaxy-saving mission. The final boss is, as is the JRPG tradition, against a giant godlike angel thing, but this is not the longest boss battle in the game. That honor goes to the Ethereal Queen, a recurring bonus superboss in the Star Ocean series. Her appearance in Star Ocean: The Last Hope comes on the 20th floor of the Wandering Dungeon, an almighty slog filled with some of the toughest enemies in the game, with procedurally generated layouts and randomized prerequisites for unlocking consecutive floors, all with no opportunity to save the game. No thanks. The unprepared who face off against this angelic entity will be in for a fight that could easily last you up to an hour against a foe completely unafraid to drop instant kill abilities like they're nothing. If you do manage to take her down, she'll reappear every second floor in the dungeon, gaining more wings and becoming even more powerful every time. Yes, you definitely need to come prepared for this one. It's a very unforgiving fight if you're just going to wing it. Ha ha ha. You will die though. Number 9. Dexidus the Invincible, Borderlands 2. Our next enduring adversary comes from Borderlands 2, a highly successful FPS with a heavy emphasis on cooperative online play, and you'll need to cooperate to take down this oversized mass of spindly legs and bulbous lumpy bits. Kind of causing us to go against our no MMO rule, though not really. Dexidus the Invincible is a secret raid boss introduced in the Sir Hammerlock's Big Game Hunt DLC and is a member of a species known as a drifter, spindly, spider-like things found in the Hunter's Grotto. Big Dex, however, is quite a lot larger than its cousins and is extremely difficult and time-consuming to kill. Immune or resistant to many different damage types, Dexidus is faced after a wave of tough enemies and has a health bar that just refuses to deplete, with many of the first set of players that tried to slay this beast assuming that the building-sized bug was, well, bugged. Such was its unholy resilience. Alas, Dexidus's weaknesses were soon found, and the internet is now full of videos of YouTubers beating the thing solo in no time at all. It almost makes you feel sorry for the gargantuan corrosive orb-spitting monstrosity. Almost. Number 8. Sestron, Panzer Dragoon Saga. Super expensive Sega Saturn RPG Panzer Dragoon Saga is so legendary it's almost mythical, but we're here to tell you that it does in fact exist and that it has a really long boss fight too. Panzer Dragoon Saga's final encounter with the mysterious entity known as Sestron comes in 3 avant-garde forms. It's fought in a psychedelic dimension that constantly assaults the player with bizarre colors and fluctuating textures, and during its first form, Sestron will treat the player to a selection of memories every time it is damaged. These memories are not just from Panzer Dragoon Saga, but include snippets of cutscenes from the previous games in the series, and most importantly for this list, adds to the boss's substantial runtime. The rest of the battle doesn't get any less weird, with the ancient artificial being summoning previously defeated bosses from the series, and it's also preceded by a warm-up scrap against phantom versions of the player's own dragon mount. All of this while looking at a constantly undulating void of hypnotically shifting shapes and colors accompanied by hysteria-inducing discordant music means you might need a lie down after surviving this abstract encounter. You might even say that this fight tends to drag on. You probably shouldn't though. Number 7. Yami, Okami. Clover Studios' beloved yet commercially underachieving tale of sun goddess in wolf form Amaterasu is quite the experience for gamers in search of something with a bit of visual flair. Presented in the style of traditional inkwash paintings, 2006's Okami lives up to its arty reputation by letting the player loose with a celestial brush that they can use to slash enemies, create strong winds, or interact with the world in other interesting ways. Unfortunately, Okami's final boss, Yami, steals this power from Amaterasu, resulting in a very arduous 5-stage battle in which Amaterasu must gradually reclaim her powers from the vaguely mechanical monstrosity and then use them to take down each of its 5 forms. Who Yami actually is somewhat ambiguous, as he is one of those final bosses where identity is not revealed until towards the end of the game. However, he is referred to as the absolute ruler of all beings and the ultimate symbol of darkness, so is probably someone not to take lightly, despite apparently being a strange little fish-like being in a spherical bowl under all of that final boss regalia. Also preceded by a boss rush, the Yami battle is a fitting way to end such an epic adventure, and that's not bad for a little fishy, is it? It actually is bad, stop it. Number 6. Guldera, Octopath Traveler 2. JRPGs seem to be a good place to spot marathon boss fights, as our friends in the Far East are apparently quite fond of consuming all of your spare time with unnecessarily HP-heavy monstrosities. Just a spoiler for you, the JRPG focus isn't really going to let up on this list. Our next overly resilient foe is from Square Enix's 2023 adventure Octopath Traveler 2 and goes by the name of Guldera the Fallen. This godlike entity was the secret final super boss of the original Octopath Traveler and returned with a vengeance, once again being an optional super boss and providing an even tougher challenge for veteran players. Guldera's second form, which has to be taken on by the backup party, is quite intimidating, looking like something that popped out of the Eye of Terror. His first form, however, is especially unpleasant, taking the unsettlingly common Square Enix route of being a writhing mass of bloated eyeballs and contorted bodies. Love it! Honestly, one day they're going to knock down Square Enix's head office in Tokyo and find that one of these massive conjoined horrors was in the basement all along, orchestrating things. Wouldn't be surprising. And what could this subterranean amalgamation of fused cosmic entities have in store for us next? That's what I want to know. Final Fantasy 17, maybe. Number 5. Adamantoise, Final Fantasy 15. Honestly, the Final Fantasy series is absolutely crawling with bosses that take an age to polish off, but in the interests of variety, we've narrowed it down to 2. First up is Adamantoise, a masterclass in monster design subtlety. See it there? In the background? Look closely, it's quite easy to miss. The Adamantoise is a recurring enemy found throughout the Final Fantasy franchise, but we're specifically talking about his appearance in Final Fantasy 15 here, where it plays the role of an optional super boss with the highest HP in the game by a wide margin. A tortoise that is literally the size of a mountain, this monolithic beast is about as tough as one too, being tremendously resistant to damage and taking an absolute age to whittle down unless the party come in mega prepared. Its damage output isn't all that impressive though, so even a lower leveled party has a chance of victory. Just be prepared for a very, very long fight. I'm not sure why you would want to fight it though, it's not really hurting anyone. I'm also not sure why it's named after flamboyant pop star and highwayman Adam Ant either. Can't really find a link between the two. It'll have to remain a mystery, I suppose. Number 4. The End, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. If you've watched a fair bit of gaming YouTube, you'll likely be intimately familiar with Parasite-enhanced Centenarian The End. A mainstay of top 10 lists, The End is a boss in 2004's Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and a very unorthodox one he is too. The confrontation with The End comes in the form of a tense and drawn-out sniper duel, with the old fellow using his enhanced techniques and abilities to put a stop to protagonist Naked Snake's shenanigans in the forest at Sacravenio. The End is extremely difficult to find and uses his excellent camouflage capabilities to blend in with his surroundings, so many players ended up spending an hour or more trying to track down this antiquated operative. There are a few tricks though that players can use to make this game of cat and mouse a bit easier. You can kill the End's parrot friend to weaken his spotting game, though you wouldn't kill an innocent parrot, would you? You can use the PS2's directional mic accessory to try and hear him breathing, or you can pause your game and come back a week later to find that the venerable sniper has passed of old age. Not much honor in that, is there? Less honor than killing a parrot, arguably. Number 3. Abyssion, Tales of Symphonia. Despite having some emotionally charged story moments, Namco's 2003 GameCube action RPG Tales of Symphonia is a bright and colourful, whimsical affair with likeable characters, pretty vistas, and a peaceful pastel colour scheme where players will do battle with blobby slimes, fluffy rabbits, and gigantic skeletal horned four-armed humanoids of mysterious origin and brimming with ancient destructive power. Wait, one of those doesn't quite fit. These fellows are the Sword Dancers, and they're part of a near game-long side quest to track down a series of weapons known as the Devil's Arms and hand them over to a fellow called Abyssion, who apparently wants to destroy them. Alas, it turns out that Mr. Abyssion wasn't just some good Samaritan with an interest in legendary instruments of darkness, and he tries to take the Devil's Arms power upon completion of the quest. He'll need to be defeated once he reveals himself as Tales of Symphonia's optional super boss. This fiery redhead is quite the challenge too, with unprepared players reporting back with sweaty palms and frazzled expressions after a good hour or so of frenzied button mashing. I'm sorry, but that's what you get for trusting someone called Abyssion with 9 powerful implements of destruction. Idiots. Number 2. Nick's Avatar, Persona 3. The Persona series has something of a reputation for lengthy adventures that tend to demand upwards of 100 hours in order to see the ending. This is all well and good if you're someone who's got a few weeks of spare time on your hands, and for the most part the Persona titles are of a quality that, even after countless hours of dungeon crawling, cutscene watching, and social linking, are unlikely to have outstayed their welcome. This cannot be said, however, about the final boss of Persona 3, the somewhat infamous Nick's Avatar. Being something of an embodiment of the concept of death, the Nick's Avatar is quite a daunting fight and will take on a number of different arcanas that all enhance its abilities in different ways. These are known as Fool, Magician, Priestess, Empress, Emperor, Hierophant, Lovers, Chariot, Justice, Hermit, Fortune, Strength, Hanged Man, and Death. That's 14 stages if you weren't keeping count. This overabundance of stages, along with Nyx's philosophical musings between each and the general slow pace of Persona 3's battle system, makes battling this spindly nightmare quite the slog. They did at least make Nyx easier to beat in Persona 3 Reload, and thank you for respecting our time, Atlas. Number 1. Yasmat, Final Fantasy XII. Continuing the theme of boss battles that were cut down a bit for the re-release is Final Fantasy XII's Sultan of Staying Power, Yasmat, whose runtime was cut down dramatically in the Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age remaster. Thank God. Final Fantasy XII itself is an absolute monster when it comes to optional content to explore and non-obligatory monsters to hunt, but chief among these substantial side dishes is the deity among dragons known as Yasmat. The ultimate hunt in the game, the quest to seek out this legendary terror, comes from Mont Blanc, a well-travelled Moogle and recurring character in the Final Fantasy franchise. Mont Blanc is upset at Yasmat because Yasmat killed his master and puts in a request at the clan hall in Rabanasta to see the friend brought down. This fight can easily go on for hours for all but the most clued up and prepared players, not least because the beast has well over 50 million hit points, which is an absolutely absurd number by anyone's standards. Why would they do that? So, dear viewer, if you're thinking it might be a fun challenge to test yourself against this ruler of worms, we recommend a clear mind, a comfy chair, and lots of snacks. Oh, and do remember to let us know how you got on. Okay, best of luck.